In world geography today, we begin in Chapter 12, Northern and Southern Europe. Our chapter opener page looks like this, and you can see the different regions that we're going to be studying as we continue studying the continent of Europe. We began with the study of Western Europe, the countries located here. Now we're breaking it into kind of contrasting study of what would be this northern region, which is very far to the north, closer to the North Pole, that have very harsh winters and a very different climate in comparison to the southern portions of Europe that have more of a Mediterranean and almost subtropical climate in this region. So a lot of times when we're going to be talking about the geography in these areas, the people, the culture, the climate in these areas, you're going to see a stark contrast because their locations are very different. Some of those other factors are going to be very different as well. In Northern Europe, you can see we have the island of Iceland, country of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark. In Southern Europe, we've got Portugal, Spain, Andorra, Italy, San Marino, Vatican City, Greece, and Turkey as the countries that we are studying. Let's get into the physical geography of these two regions. Click here on Lesson 1, and it'll take you to your text. You're welcome to follow along and listen to Mr. Shane as he reads, or to click on this little headphone button and read it for yourself. Your assignment at the end of today's class period is to complete the quiz. So if you want to complete that quiz and answer those questions as you're going, tracking your comprehension as you're going, or if you like to, as Mr. Shane prescribes, read the entire thing and then go back and reread where you need to find those specific pieces of information. Lesson 1, the physical geography of the region, landforms and waterways. Our guiding question says, how are the landforms in Northern and Southern Europe similar? How are they different? Much of Northern Europe is a land of rugged mountains, rocky soils, and jagged coasts. A map of Northern Europe would show Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Iceland. Together, these 5 far northern lands are often called the Nordic countries. The Mediterranean Sea dominates the coast of much of Southern Europe, affecting the climate and the movement of people. Southern Europe is made up of Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Greece, as well as the tiny countries of Andorra, San Marino, and Vatican City. It also includes the island countries of Malta and Cyprus, the westernmost part of Turkey, and a tiny British territory of Gibraltar. A land of peninsulas. A peninsula is an area of land surrounded on 3 sides by water. In the United States, Florida is a good example of a peninsula. 2 peninsulas make up most of Northern Europe. Jutland is a peninsula that extends northward from Germany and includes most of Denmark. The Scandinavian peninsula is made up of Norway and Sweden. The large landmasses east of Sweden is Finland. Much of the land of Norway, Sweden, and Finland lies north of 60 degrees north latitude. Northern Europe also includes many islands. Iceland is a large island in the northern Atlantic Ocean near the Arctic Circle. Denmark has about 400 islands. Its capital, Copenhagen, is on the largest of the islands. Southern Europe also has several peninsulas. Spain and Portugal form the Iberian Peninsula. Most of Italy is the long, boot-shaped Italian peninsula. East of Italy, the larger Balkan Peninsula includes several Eastern European nations, with Greece as its southern tip. So something similar about both the Northern and Southern Europe are the land features of peninsulas and islands. In Southern Europe, the larger Mediterranean islands of Sicily and Sardinia are part of Italy. The nearby islands of Malta form an independent country. The island of Crete is part of Greece. Farther east, the islands of Cyprus contain the largely Greek but independent nation of Cyprus, as well as North Cyprus, a Turkish territory. So you can see both islands and peninsulas are distinctly similar in both of these areas. Obviously, the climate and the way in which they're shaped or way in which people inhabit them might be different, but they have those geographic features in common. Mountains and plains. The Scandinavian peninsula has a spine of rugged mountains formed with 2 tectonic plates that have collided. Glaciation, or the weathering and erosion caused by moving masses of ice called glaciers, carved the land into the mountains and the plateaus that we see today. Iceland also has rugged terrain, but it formed from volcanic activity. The island is part of a mountain range, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, which is mostly underwater. At Iceland, it rises above sea level, and Iceland is home to more than 200 volcanoes and many hot springs, as well as Europe's largest glacier. Part of the boundary between Western Europe and Southern Europe is formed by 2 mountain ranges, the Pyrenees and the Alps. The Pyrenees mark the boundary between southern France and the Iberian Peninsula. The Alps form the northern border of Italy and separate the Italian peninsula from the rest of Europe. Some countries of southern Europe are mountainous. The Apennines extends along the length of Italy. They are volcanic and subject to earthquakes. Greece also had rugged highlands. The tallest and most famous of its mountains is Mount Olympus, which legend says is the home of the gods of Greek mythology. Most of Spain lies on the plateau called the Meseta Central. It is a harsh landscape. To the north and south of the Meseta Central are mountain ranges, but its western side slopes gently toward the Atlantic Ocean. Valencia, along Spain's eastern coast, is a coastal plain of rolling hills. So you've got a difference between glacier areas, mountainous, and rolling hills in the variety of landscapes that exist in both the northern and southern portions of Europe. Portugal is divided geographically by the Tagus River. South of the river landscape is characterized by extensive rolling plains. Throughout the area are abundant trees and plants, including evergreen oak trees, olive trees, figs, and vineyards. The northeastern coast features a landscape of wide valleys and steep hills. The Mediterranean Sea. The most important body of water in southern Europe is the Mediterranean Sea. It stretches about 2,500 miles from the southern coast of Spain and the west of the coast of Greece, Turkey, and various countries of Southwest Asia. The Mediterranean is almost completely surrounded by land. In the west, it connects to the Atlantic Ocean through the Strait of Gibraltar. At the strait's narrowest point, just 8 miles separates the southern tip of Spain from Africa. Waterways. Along the important rivers of southern Europe is Italy's Po. Many small rivers drain into the Po as it travels from the Alps to the Adriatic Sea. The Ebro is the longest river that lies entirely in Spain. It originates in the Cantabrian Mountains in the north and ends in Spain's Mediterranean coast. The longest river on the Iberian Peninsula is the Tagus, which crosses Spain and Portugal on its way to the Atlantic Ocean. Northern Europe has few important rivers, but it has long coastlines indented by many seas and bays. Norway is surrounded on 3 sides by water, and much of Norway's west coast is dotted by narrow water-filled valleys called fjords. Here's a picture of what those fjords look like. Massive, huge cliffs in the water that goes to the inland areas. The Baltic Sea borders Sweden's southern and southeastern coasts. Sweden has major ports on the Baltic, but the sea is more likely to freeze than other bodies of salt water. This is because the Baltic is shallow and has fairly low concentrations of salt. Finland also borders the Baltic Sea. Its interior is better known for its many lakes. Glaciers have carved as many as 56,000 lakes in Finland. Contrasting climates. How is the climate of Northern Europe different from the climate of Southern Europe? Notice just based on the map that we looked at how drastically different they are in location in terms of distance from the equator. In the northern portions, you're near the Arctic Circle. In the southern portions, you're closer, way closer to the equator in that Mediterranean area. So you're probably already going to notice this stark difference in climate and overall length of these different seasons. Northern Europe has a cool or cold climate, yet the conditions in some places are much harsher than in others. Landforms, distance from the sea, and ocean currents play a part in determining climate. Chile, Northern Europe. The northern part of Norway is located as far north as Alaska, but it is not nearly as cold. The Norwegian Current, part of the Gulf Stream, flows past Norway carrying warm water from the tropics. As a result, western Norway has a marine climate, with mild winters and cool summers. The relative mild climate does not extend far to the east. Mountains reduce the eastward flow of mild air. Eastward Norway thus has colder and snowier winters. Even so, the climate in eastern Norway and Sweden is milder than in other parts of the world at the same latitude. Finland's climate is considered continental because it receives little influence from the seas. It has cold winters and hot summers. Winters are harsh, especially north of the Arctic Circle. In the mountainous parts of northern Finland, the snow never melts. This land is mostly considered tundra, a region where subsoil is frozen and only plants such as lichens and mosses can survive. The Gulf Stream brings warm water to the southern and western coasts of Iceland. This moderates the temperatures in these parts of the country. The effect does not reach northern Iceland, which just touches the Arctic Circle. There, drifting ice and fog are common in the winter, and temperatures year-round are several degrees colder than they are in the southern and western parts of the country. Warm southern Europe. The most common climate in the southern Europe is Mediterranean. The climate features warm or hot summers and cool or mild winters. Spring and fall are rainy, but summers are dry. If you ever have been to the southern coast of California, you've experienced this Mediterranean climate. It seems like there's good weather all the time in Southern California, hence why this area is very, very popular, just as California is. Temperatures are not uniform across Southern Europe, however, or even within a few countries. Northern Italy is near the Alps and has cooler mountain climate where winters are colder than in southern Italy, and snow is heavy at high elevations. The Meseta Central, a vast plateau in Spain, on the other hand, has a continental climate. The area's high elevation and mountain barriers cause dry winds and drought conditions year-round. The dryness causes temperature extremes with cold winters and hot summers. Natural resources. What natural resources are available to the people of Northern and Southern Europe? So far we've seen similarities in geographic features and differences in climate. What do they have in terms of natural resources? Obviously, because of climate, some of the things that live there, vegetation-wise, plant life-wise, and human resources are going to be very different. But what do they have available to them in these areas? Northern and Southern Europe hold rich stores of resources. The sea also provides a variety of resources from fish to oil and gas. Both locations, Northern and Southern Europe, are located near massive bodies of water, so maybe that plays a role in the similarities that they might have. Vegetation. Plants need to be drought resistant in order to survive the dry summers in the Mediterranean climate. Because of the dry climate, the poor soils in Southern Europe in many areas are scrubland or places where short grasses and shrubs are dominant plants. Trees such as olive, fig, and cypress are common. Two of the most important crops throughout Southern Europe are grapes and olives. Wine, which is made from grapes, is an important export from Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Greece. Italy and Greece are also major exporters of olive oil. So because they've got harsh, hot summers, they don't have the best type of precipitation and therefore vegetation for massive farming industry in this southern area near the Mediterranean. In widely forested northern Europe, the main plant resource is wood. Forests cover nearly 3/4 of Finland, and wood from these forests in Finland is most important natural resource. Finland exports birch, spruce, and pine wood for paper products to Western Europe. Sweden's forests produce timber, paper, wood pulp, and furniture. So to the north, you have these massive, massive areas of plentiful amounts of forest. Therefore, the biggest vegetation here, again, isn't going to be cropland, but this specific type of plant that grows in this region. So you can see many of those rolling hills and mountainous areas just completely covered with dense forest. Northern minerals and energy. Norway might not be considered an energy powerhouse, but thanks to the discovery of petroleum in the North Sea, Norway is now Europe's biggest exporter of oil and one of Europe's leading suppliers of natural gas. Northern Europe also has rich mineral ore resources, which deposits of iron ore, copper, titanium, lead, nickel, and zinc. Norway remains one of the world's largest or leading metal exporters. Sweden lacks fossil fuels, but it has rich mineral resources. These include iron ore, copper, coal, gold, zinc, and lead. So many areas that have a lot of mountainous kind of terrain features have often a prevalent mining industry, and you can see that in the type of mineral resources that they have. Denmark has few natural mineral or energy resources. However, Denmark uses wind turbines to supply much of its electricity. Sweden and Norway get much of their electricity from hydroelectric power plants. Because of the volcanic nature of the island, Iceland has enormous reserves of geothermal energy. It provides energy to industries and all of the heating needed for Reykjavik, Iceland's major industrial area, as well as several other towns. Iceland's rivers also supply hydroelectric power. You can see one of those hydroelectric dams here showing in Norway in what would be this large canyon. Sea resources. A rich variety of fish inhabit the North Sea, and the nations along its shores have long-standing fishing traditions. Norway has one of the biggest fishing industries in Europe. Some of the fish caught, such as sand eels and mackerel, are ground into fish meal, a powder that is used in animal feed and fertilizers. Today, few people work in the fishing industry. This is because ships that tow large nets behind them, called factory ships, or trawlers, have increased their catches. So if you have better technology, you have less need for maybe a more prevalent workforce. At one time, whaling was an important industry for many countries by the sea, including Norway. Whales were hunted for their meat and oil, but by the mid-1900s, many of the large species of whales were in danger of becoming extinct. Whaling is now limited to a few small species that are not believed to be endangered. Spain and Portugal have extensive Atlantic Ocean coastlines, and fishing is an important industry in both countries. The cities of Vigo and La Corona are Spain's biggest fishing ports. Spanish fishing fleets range far from their shores, however, leading conflicts with other countries. The Mediterranean Sea has long been an important fishing ground for the countries that border its shores, including Italy and Greece. However, overfishing and pollution have reduced fish populations. In addition, the Mediterranean Sea lacks the nutrients necessary to support large populations of fish. Commercial fisheries use fish hatcheries to cultivate and breed fish. After the fish mature, they are released into the sea. That way, they repopulate the fish population that has been overfished. So because both of these regions have a prominent prevalence next to massive bodies of water, you can see that a lot of people not only live by that water, but rely on that water for this massive resource in terms of fishing and jobs that would provide, also food in that way. That is the extent of our reading. You can, again, use that rereading strategy to go back and answer specific questions from your quiz, or if you did it while we were going, maybe you paused on the way through to answer those questions as we went through. God's blessings.